Hello and welcome to Keeping It Young podcast, conversations about marriage, family, and ministry life. I'm Dave.
And I'm Bethlie.
And we are the Youngs.
And we're so glad you've joined us today.
Yes, we are. Hope you've had a wonderful week and your week is off to a good start here already. And I hope you've enjoyed this series we've been doing. It's a little bit of a different series. We talked through so many different issues over the last 5 years. And one of the things that comes up frequently is people ask us for book recommendations and they ask us for our book list, which we do have. We keep. It's not exhaustive, but a lot of the books that we have read through the years, we have written down and, put in lists. And sometimes we reread those. We refer to those during counseling situations. We have found just incredible resources from the books that we have read.
Right.
And so that's where this series kind of came from. And we've covered several books so far, and we are ready to jump into a new book today. Is there anything we need to cover before we do?
Well, I just wanted to say that I have had the opportunity to travel 3 different weekends this fall for ladies' conferences, ladies' retreats, and I did get to meet some big fans, and I'm so excited always to meet you. And so thank you for coming up and saying hello and telling me that you enjoy the podcast, that you listen to the podcast. It was a pleasure to meet all of you, and thank you so much for listening. Since we came to Missouri, we don't get to travel as much. We don't get to, almost every church we went to, we met people who would say, hey, we listened to the podcast. So we don't really get that anymore. And sometimes we don't get the feedback and we're not sure who's listening, if it's making an impact, if people are still enjoying it. I know, like this series that we're in right now about the books, there may be some people that are like, I don't really need to listen to that. It's just a book review. So anyway, it was just good to hear from ladies in Indiana area, and I was in the Chicago area, and then I was in the Clarksburg, West Virginia area just this past weekend. So anyway, it was just good to hear that it is still impacting people and people are still listening.
Sure. And I get a kick out of the fact that sometimes people will say things like, I didn't know you guys had a podcast.
That's true.
And that always catches us off guard a little bit because it's become such a part of our lives that we do one podcast every week, and we've done it for 5 years now. And it does just seem like part of our lives. It's just normal to us to do it. And because it is so much a part of our life, it just catches us off guard when some people, sometimes that we're really close to, are like, I didn't know you guys did that. And but for all of you that do listen, we are very grateful. And I just remind you, many times we get messages and people reach out to us. In our technological world, there can be so many different directions that we can overlook maybe a message or even not get it. So please do feel free to send a message a second time if there's something you have inquired about and you've not heard from us.
Yes.
And but you're always welcome to reach out to us. And I don't know how far we'll go in this. We could spend another a year or more on the books that have impacted our marriage and family.
Oh my goodness. Well, our book list, as you said, it's not exhaustive, but it is extensive.
It is extensive. That's correct. And I'm sitting here in my office as we're recording this, looking on the shelf here, and I just have a select few of our books, and the entire top shelf there is about marriage, and the entire second shelf is about family. And so there are a ton of materials. And by the way, that is the blessing, one of the great blessings of our generation, is that we have so many resources available. And I would just say to you that, listen, there are a lot of problems in our generation. The social media problem, and there's the busyness problem, and psychologically there's so many issues that we're dealing with in our generation. We have the mental health issue, and there's just a ton of them. And yet there are so many resources available to help us navigate all of those.
Right.
So really, we can't say enough about urging you to read good books and find those that will help your family in the seasons of life and different issues you're dealing with. And when you need recommendations, then look for them. And if we can help you in that, we certainly would be glad to do so. Well, let's jump in today and get started. Are you ready?
Yes, a new book.
Let's talk today from the DNA of Parent-Teen Relationships. It is subtitled, Discover the Key to Your Teen's Heart. And this is by Gary and Greg Smalley, and I was just reading about them a little bit. Gary Smalley, this was back in the late 90s and the early 2000s that this book was written. It had a reprint in like 2005. So this is an older book. It's 20 years old.
Well, yeah. There many of our listeners would be like, ooh, vintage.
Well, here's a vintage book for you. Gary Smalley is one of the country's best-known authors and speakers on family relationship. He's the author and co-author of 28 best-selling, award-winning books, including the recent bestseller, The DNA of Relationships. He has appeared on nationally televised programs like Oprah, Larry King, The Today Show, and a ton of other national radio programs. He's the president and founder of the Smalley Relationship Center, and they live in Branson, Missouri when they wrote this book. So
No
they are
kidding.
fellow folks from the Missouri state. Dr. Greg Smalley, the co-author, holds a doctorate degree in clinical psychology. He graduated from Biola University in Southern California, is both the director of church relationship ministries and professor of marriage and family studies at John Brown University. And he is the author and co-author of 8 books, including The DNA of Relationships for Couples. And he actually lives in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, with his wife, Erin, and their 3 children. At least that was true of the time of this book's publication in 2005. So who knows now? But nonetheless, this is a book that I guess I found it. We were on our family vacation somewhere along the way, and we were in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We visited the Focus on the Family.
Yes.
I don't know what you call it, headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
And we really went there because of Adventures in Odyssey.
Right.
And
we went after Matt and Kara's wedding.
That
So
is
when
correct.
Matt and Kara were married in Colorado, we took the next few days to just have a family vacation. Charity, well, a lot of our children, I think all of our children grew up on Adventures in Odyssey, but Charity loved it. I have never seen a child just so love Adventures in Odyssey. And so even though she was a teenager at the time, we said, hey, we could go and see where they, have recorded these and they have a whole, I don't know what you want to call it, like
almost like a museum.
Odyssey land
Yes.
there. So she desperately wanted to go. So we did go, but I will tell you that we spent more time in the Focus on the Family bookstore than we did in Odyssey.
If you love books, that's a dangerous place to visit.
Oh my.
Because there are so many, especially in what we deal with as far as family and relationships and marriage and all of that. The Focus on the Family bookstore is just loaded. And that, I think, is where I actually came across this book.
I think so. And can I just tell the story?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
So all of us, most of us in our family are readers. And so Charity and I, we walk into this huge Christian bookstore and our mouths are just open. We're just like eyes sparkling, ready to go. And of course, David is like pulling us back. Books cost money. He's just like, okay, just be careful, be wise, and let's be careful here. So we're trying. We're like, we would find a few books we liked, but then we find some more that we liked better, and so we put those back, and so we come up to the counter kind of sheepishly holding like 2 or 3 books, like, can we get these? And we get to the counter, people, and the stack of books that David Young had that he chalked up to, I need these for ministry purposes. I mean, it was higher than our heads.
It was only 13 books. I only bought 13 books.
But 2 or 3 compared to 13. Charity, she loves the story because she's just like, oh, we need to be careful. Do we need to be careful, Dad?
Yeah, but she's spoiled, so do not take this story to make you feel sorry for Charity, because she gets all the books that she wants.
It was a few years ago. We have repented of any bitter feelings that we have.
And so, folks, please pray about this for these ladies in my family. But that's where this book came from, was Focus on the Family. And it is just an outstanding book. In fact, I bought it and thought, it's good because there's a lot of things we have to deal with teenagers, and a lot of parents come for advice. This is just a go-to book. There's things that we learned from this book that was like, wow, that is really good. Mm-hmm. Now, it is just a book, so there'd be things in the book that I don't know that I agree with.
Right.
But the things I do agree with are really, really helpful. It's a great book about navigating the teen years. And each chapter has various quotes, and a lot of them are Bible verses. So there'll be, different verses about family and things of that sort, or about emotional things, like about anger or whatever. But there were several that kind of stood out to me. There was actually one by Anna Freud, and that's Sigmund.
I know. I'm sitting here looking at this quote by Anna Freud, and I am just like, Are we actually going
And
to
I will
quote
actually,
a Freud?
yes, I will actually have to tell you that I'm sitting here watching her look at that quote because she hadn't seen that I added that, and I could read her face, and her face was saying, "Are we really going to quote a Freud?"
I agree with the quote. So
Yes,
you
it is
should
a
read
really
it.
good quote. And it was somewhat humorous, is why I thought it was great. Any adult who behaves the way that teenagers behave would be judged certifiably insane. And so I thought, you know what? There's probably some truth to that, because those teen years can be very hard to navigate. And it's just because there's so many pressures that teens are working through. They're transitioning from a child to an adult. They're working through the extreme peer pressure that comes with the teen years. And on top of that, they have acne they have to deal with. And on top of that, they have, the boyfriend-girlfriend thing. Do we date? Are we permitted to date?
True.
One of the things that has been easy in the way we do it, as far as saying, you know what, we don't date till we get to college, is it took immense pressure off of our children in that regard.
Yes.
And others have that pressure. And there's if in some of our Christian schools, the pressure is, you need a boyfriend, you need a girlfriend. And then there's all kinds of things, and behind the scenes, there's so much that goes into the teenage years. It can be a really hard time.
It can. And I agree with the quote in that there are way too many parents, whether Christian or not Christian, in church, not in church, who behave on the level of their child, whether it's an elementary school age child who is having a meltdown and then the parent has a little meltdown, or a teenager who gets all huffy and sassy and then the parent right back at them. And it behooves us as parents to remember that we are the adult in the situation and we should behave as a mature adult.
That is so true, because how many times have we sat in a airport and watched the mom of a 3 or 4 or 5 or even 7 or 8-year-old responding in kind, exactly the same way the child is acting, that's how
Yes.
they're acting.
Yes.
Or a parent respond to a teenager, the same behavior they do not approve of in their teenager, they're behaving the exact same way and trying to, to address it.
Right. Or the parent is trying to relive their teen years through their teenager. So I know sometimes Charity and I will be out shopping and maybe it's homecoming time or prom time. And so the teen girl is in the dressing room trying on a dress that no girl, whether Christian or not, should walk around in public in. But the mom is just like, oh my goodness, you're so cute. Oh my goodness, I would wear that dress if I were you. You just look, and you just know that the mom is just trying to be who that teenage girl is, or relive her teenage years, or whatever. And I just want to look her in the face and say, you need to be the adult here, and you need to be like, absolutely not. You will not go in public looking like that. Go back in and find something else.
Absolutely. So the point here being that even though we would absolutely agree with almost nothing about Sigmund Freud, his daughter nailed that one. And here's two other ones. This one is from Jean Erskine Stewart. Is that how you would say that? This is just one of the headings of the chapter. In no order of things is adolescence the simple time of life.
True.
And because it can be such a complicated time of life, learning how to navigate it well and helping your teen's heart is what this book is all about. And here's just an anonymous at one of the heads, one of the chapters. 50 years from now, it will not matter what kind of car you drove, what kind of house you lived in, how much you had in your bank account, or what your clothes look like. But the world may be a little better because you were important in the life of a child.
Yes.
And I do believe that one, because we see regularly families, and the generational curse of sin can so easily show up in families. And oftentimes when you meet a messed up young man, sometimes more often than not, you can look back at and I say it gently, but a messed up family.
Right.
And so it does matter how that we are in the life of our children. And there's a ton of that begin with other verses. Here are some of the subjects he tackles. You want to read some of those for us?
He tackles how to make the teen years the best years. And I think that would be a chapter that all parents would want to go to, because in our culture, we firmly believe that the toddler years and the teen years are the worst years of parent-child relationships.
Sure.
So that one sounds good. How to keep anger levels low. How to argue with a teen and come out as closer friends. I think we're going to tackle that chapter,
Yes.
aren't we? Finding the best solution in any conflict. How democracy can bring responsibility to your home. I love that, because my father used to say, we never were allowed to talk back to my parents, but every once in a while, my dad would give us a directive, and we would, be like, well, why can't we? Or could you reconsider or something? And he would look at us and say, this is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship. So
That's awesome.
let's see. Going on, strengthening your relationship with your teenager, helping teens make lemonade out of life's lemons, helping teens maintain and regain their virginity, and when teenagers walk away from the light, and leaving home with honor.
So that gives you an overview of what you'll find in this book, and some of those are unique, like the idea of the democracy. What does he mean by that? That's worth your reading. It's worth your checking out. And how do you strengthen a relationship with a teenager? And what do you do about the hard times in life? The lemonade out of lemons, and even the issues of purity, and what do you do if your teen is turning away and showing no interest in God? This is a dynamic book. And obviously we could spend literally months in this book. It covers so many important topics. So this is a book you ought to read. And moms and dads, it'll help you. So let's jump in here while we still have some time left here today and talk about chapter 3, which is about keeping anger levels low. Let's just jump in about that one, because anger is really a huge issue in so many lives today.
Well, it is. I was at a ladies' conference. This has been, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. But the assistant pastor's wife told me that they had taken a poll among their ladies. What do you want to hear taught on? What Bible study would best fit? Anxiety was one issue that the ladies said, but the second one was anger. And I found that very interesting, that they know that anger is an issue in their life and in their home life.
And he makes this great case in this chapter that not all anger is explosive.
Right.
And he does deal with the fact that anger does happen in the moment. There's, words that are said, explosive, emotions run high. But one of the things he's really talking about in this chapter is how that anger shuts down a teenager.
Right.
They withdraw. They close their spirit is the word he uses. And he actually begins this chapter with Ephesians chapter 6, where the Bible says that we are not to provoke our children to anger. The version he quotes says, do not exasperate your children so that they will not lose heart. And the version we most often use, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
Yes.
This is just a really, really good chapter. And he says that unresolved anger is the number one enemy of a teen's healthy development and spiritual growth.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So many times in our culture, we celebrate anger almost. It becomes so normal to us,
Right.
that we just expect it. Teens are supposed to behave that way. Drivers are supposed to behave that way.
Right.
Moms are supposed to behave that way. Toddlers are supposed to be sassy. Girls are supposed to be sassy. And a lot of that comes out of this, slight edge of anger, where people respond in frustration and irritation, and they raise their voice at each other and sigh and roll their eyes. And he's lumping all of that in together.
Right. Well, I would say in our culture that it's not out of the ordinary to find parents and teens who don't even have a civil word for one another. If they have to speak to one another, it's always with an edge. And so we in the church, really, we should work to abolish anger in our homes and to come to the bottom of what's going on in our teen's heart. If you have a teen who has an anger issue, what's going on in that heart that's really flourishing that anger and making that anger more of a problem in their life? Absolutely.
So he goes on in the chapter, and a couple of things stand out. One is he talks about the 3 faces of unresolved anger, and this is what you'll the results of it.
Right.
And he talks about hurt feelings,
or maybe the root of it.
But kind of how to observe, how to know there's unresolved anger.
Okay.
There's hurt feelings, there is frustration, there is a fear or a feeling unsafe. And that may look like, I don't feel safe in sharing with you my opinion, so I don't share it with you.
Right.
I don't feel safe in asking you about anything, so I don't ask you.
Right.
And he said, what does it look like? Well, when you have anger relationally, it causes you to distance from others.
True.
So when your teen is pulling away from you and away from, the home or the family, there's a relational problem there that probably has its root in anger. Spiritually, the Bible's clear that when we have anger in our life, we walk in the darkness.
Right.
So we don't have God's joy, we don't have God's light, we don't have God's blessing.
We can't see things
Right.
The way that they really are. We just see things as we sift it all through our emotion
Yes.
instead of seeing things truly.
And emotionally, we close our heart so that we're no longer open. One of the things that is beautiful when you're raising your children is when their heart is open. And that's, we joke sometimes about our children always wanting to come in and talk at night. And we have a 16-year-old home right now. She'll be 17 very shortly. And our 16-year-old loves to talk at night. It always cracks me up how she can spend an entire day going, hey, I'm so tired. I'm just so tired. I'm just so worn out. I'm so exhausted. It's been so busy. And we're ready to go to bed because our day has been tired and exhausted and busy. And we're ready to get to bed because we have an early morning. And something happens, I don't know, somewhere between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, something clicks in her mind or body physically or emotionally. And all of a sudden, she's wide awake.
Right.
But it's also an openness. We see that when she comes in and just talks, talks about what's happening in the youth group and what so-and-so said and, about this guy or that girl and this situation or that situation. And that is just, it's an awareness that all is well. So what does it look like when we have unresolved anger? Well, it shows up in hurt feelings and frustrations and fear and feeling unsafe. But relationally, it's when we're distant from each other. Spiritually, when we're walking in the darkness, we just can't see and life doesn't make sense. And emotionally, when we have a closed heart. So then he talks about what provokes it. And he lists several things here. You want to share those?
Well, sarcastic jokes and comments.
And he nails that one really hard. And he talks about this idea that it's so easy for some parents to just be sarcastic. Well, you that was stupid, or you look kind of dumb there, and why would you want to wear that dumb outfit? And the sarcasm really especially damages the heart of a teenager.
Yes.
When they're already very sensitive and they're, already kind of jockeying for position and because of the changes happening biologically and relationally and even spiritually in their life, they're very sensitive. And it's so easy for some parents to be like, oh, man, you just need to get over it. They're just so sensitive. But Mom and Dad, what the Bible teaches in Ephesians chapter 6 is when your sarcastic comment and the way you're treating your teenager is causing them to experience anger, then you're the one at fault.
Yes.
And that's a pretty big statement, but it's true.
I would say that if you have a really close relationship with your teen, I felt like we were close to all of our kids throughout all of their teen years, and we're close to Charity. Right now, there were times where our kids would distance themselves. We would pick up on that right away, and we tried to get to the root of the issue right away and find out what was going on. But for the most part, we were very, very close. And if you are a close-knit family like that, there is room for some teasing. You could tease one another. You can make a few little comments, but you also know, because you're so close, when you've gone too far.
Sure.
And you back it up, or better than to take that next step and take it to the level where it could be hurtful. And if it does get hurtful, that you can just say, hey, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Or, hey, I'm sorry, we were just kidding around, that got out of hand. But if you already have a little bit of distance between you and your teenager, you already know there's some issues between you, then to make jokes or comments or sarcasm towards them, that is not, it's only going to push them farther away. And unfortunately, parents can be some of the most hurtful people, even though they would say, I love you more than anyone else in the world. They can be so hurtful in their comments.
Yeah. When we are wise and sensitive as parents, and for Christian parents, when we're walking in the Spirit, we are aware. Whereas we can laugh and talk and tease, we will know, okay, this is too far, this is hurting, and we know to back up at that point and take steps to correct it. He also says that refusing to let your teen think on their own provokes them to anger. And by that he means when you respond like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Or, well, you're too young to understand. Or maybe something like, well, who asked you? And those kind of comments provokes your teen to anger, causes them to shut down. Well, before we have to close today, let's at least just step on. He closes this chapter with 4 steps to help open a teen's closed spirit. And he gives 4 here. Reflect tenderness. And he talks about how to do that. Lower your voice, become gentle in heart, speak slowly, even getting down on one knee during a conversation. I know that many times kneeling by my kids' beds and having a conversation with them while they're even lying in bed had a great impact in their life.
Absolutely.
Or relaxing your facial expressions. On purpose, relaxing your facial expressions reflects tenderness to your teenager.
Yes.
And he mentions 3 others there. What was the second one?
Increase your own understanding. He says empathy is identifying and understanding the other person's situation, feeling, and motives. Sometimes as parents, we can be like, oh, you're just immature. You don't understand. And we don't think that their feelings are valid because we do see down the road and they don't. But their feelings are valid. That the perspective that they have is the only perspective they can have because they're teenagers. And so being genuine with them and expressing that tenderness and understanding, empathy, sympathy, that goes a long way with your teenager.
Yes, and one of the things he makes in a later chapter, and we'll close with this, he talks a little bit about communication. And this I thought was very interesting. He said, somewhere along the way, we have come to believe that real communication occurs when we understand the other person's words. He says, true communication usually does not occur until we understand the feelings that underlie spoken words. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was very good because that gets into the idea of empathy a little bit.
Yes.
When we're understanding our kids' feelings. So he also mentions here, not only reflect tenderness, increase your own understanding, but he mentions as well, we need to admit offenses. That may mean I need to apologize verbally, but maybe need to write a note of apology.
Yes.
Because that'll be powerful to a teenager. And then we seek forgiveness when we need to do so.
Absolutely.
So we are out of time, but that's just a beginning of what this book is like. We'll take maybe at least one other session to highlight some things, maybe 2, because this is such a powerful book. It's the DNA of parent-teen relationships from Focus on the Family and the Smalleys, and we highly, highly recommend it to you. Any final words before we sign off today?
Well, we'll look forward to keeping going. This is a great study and probably a refresher that we need because of the teen that lives in our home.
Absolutely, and it is very helpful. Well, you've been listening to the Keeping It Young podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed your time with us today. We've certainly enjoyed having you along, and we'll see you next week. In the meantime, whatever you do, make sure that you serve the Lord with gladness.